Rocket Knight Adventure and me have a bit of a weird history. I only played this game once when I was a kid. I rented it at a specialty game rental store, and that was an event for me, because I only got to go there once or twice a year, and they had everything, like wall-to-wall, PlayStation, Dreamcast. It was the only place you could ever rent handheld games. They had imports out the wazoo. That was the only way I ever got to play Terranigma when I was a kid. I rented it once along with like an adapter. That was fun times. They had so many weird games you didn't see anywhere else. And there were two games specifically I rented only once that I didn't even know the names of because I was just too young to read them, and they stuck with me. The first was Illusion of Gaia, one of my favorite RPGs on the Super Nintendo and a game I covered way back when. The other is Rocket Knight Adventures, a game I couldn't remember the title of, but remembered literally everything else about. So it's safe to say this game was pretty important to me. You're probably wondering why it's taken me almost 7 years to cover it. Well, the thing is, when I started this channel way back when, this was actually like the first purchase I made for it. But, like I said, we got a bit of a weird history. See, every single piece of equipment I had refused to play this game. I tried it on my Sega Genesis at first, and all I could get out of that was audio. I tried it on the Retron 3, which I bought relatively early in the show just to better record stuff. That wouldn't display anything. I tried it on the Retron 5 that I bought a couple years back, and while that would display this game perfectly fine, once it got to the second level, it would weirdly, crash and then loop back to the intro to the game. Like, you just couldn't play past level 2 for some reason. And then I tried it on the Retro Freak, and it actually worked. But the problem was that, for whatever reason, the way it was displayed to my recording device, my very high quality recording device, mind you, it just couldn't display. It was like this weird garbled mess of pixels and like a blur effect. And seriously, if you can figure out what the hell this is, let me know, because I have asked several people what the hell this effect is and no one can figure it out. I think it might be like repeated textures and like an interlacing problem. No idea. But now I've got the RetroPie, and I figured, you know what, screw it. I've got one more chance to try and record Rocket Knight Adventures. This game I've been really raring to play since I was a kid. Only got to play once. Bought this several years back to make videos on. Couldn't play it then because nothing worked with it. This game is my freaking white whale, so call me Ishmael. We're getting this done. Let's do it. Now, Rocket Knight Adventures. This was a game on the Genesis, and I think it was one of the more notable platformers. Genuinely, I think this is probably one of the coolest platformers on the system. It was by Konami, back when they were still worth a squirt of piss, and they weren't squandering their IPs to make pachinko machines instead of making games, because, honestly, Konami hates games. They like money, that's why they make pachinko machines, but they hate games. But either way, back when they cared, they made this awesome little platformer. You play as Sparkster, an opossum, who is equipped with knight armor, a sword, and a friggin' jetpack. And that's all you needed to make this awesome. Your quest! You have to go save the princess, all while fighting off the many, many anthropomorphic pigs. And there's probably some sort of social commentary in there, I'm sure. Along with fighting your evil counterpart, Axel, as well as just having a really freaking challenging platforming experience. Now, this game is a standard 2D platformer, at least most of the time. It controls relatively simply, and in fact for a standard 3-button Genesis controller, it actually only uses 2 buttons. One button maps the jump, the other maps your sword. If you hold your sword down long enough, you charge your jetpack. Now, this whole jetpack system is kind of what makes this a really interesting platformer, as opposed to one that just has a super cool new protagonist mascot character with a devil-may-care attitude and a jetpack. I mean, it's got that too, but, you know, the jetpack is what sells it as a really good platformer, and at least one that has something different. But it controls a little bit strangely. See, you hold down your sword button in order to utilize your jetpack. There's a power meter at the top of the screen. It charges. Once it's charged, you can jetpack. But once you use your jetpack, you can only fly in one straight direction until you run out of power or, you hit something and die. Now, I think this was a bit of a design choice, You can't stay permanently aloft with your jetpack, nor is there like a hovering system to allow you to make more refined platforming jumps. I'm not sure if this is necessarily a great design choice, as it does sort of actively encourage you to not really use this game's key defining feature. It means that every single angle that you take while you jetpack off has to be calculated. You kind of have to understand where you're safe and where you're not. You can't just be jetpacking literally everywhere because you will run headlong into like a wall of spikes and die horribly. You can't just spam this thing, you have to be smart about it. So it is a fun little mechanic, but it's not eminently spammable. That is one half of the jetpack mechanics that I think was a really smart decision, at least from a design perspective. But the second aspect about this jetpack that was a design decision goes back to the fact that this is a 2-button control scheme. Because your jetpack is mapped to the same button as your sword, if you're charging your jetpack, you can't very well use your sword. You'd have to lose your charge to use your sword. And if you have the jetpack charged up, you can't use your sword because you just use your jetpack. It means that you kind of have to hold on to it and you have to strategize when to use it. You have to either exchange being able to be safe and using your sword to protect yourself at the expense of charging up your jetpack, which might be needed for platforming. You could ultimately trade your safety to try and get ahead faster, but because this game usually requires you to clear rooms of enemies before you can advance, that's not always a workable solution. What is interesting about the jetpack, though, is that it has sort of a secondary mode. If you were to charge up your jetpack and not put any sort of input onto the directional pad, you'll actually spin in place and effectively give yourself a shield. And that is kind of a game changer, because you do a lot of damage, but you also kind of deflect anything that comes your way, keeping you safe. Although at the cost of your jetpack charge, which means if you're trying to get around anywhere relatively quickly, you lose that option, but you do gain safety. Again, this jetpack has a lot of risk-reward and trade-offs between it, which makes it actually quite a very strategic object. I think the developers really did think about the jetpack mechanics, and while I don't necessarily like the fact that it's very limited in how much you can actually use it to move around, I do see why they made the decisions that they do, for sure. And it is impressive that they did so much with an option as simple as hold button down to jetpack off in one direction really, really fast, press it real quick to attack. You know, they took something very simple, they built a really complex strategy around it, even if you don't necessarily feel it, because this is a relatively simple game. Other than that, this game is a simple run to the right, jump, hit things with swords affair. There's nothing terribly complicated about the platforming itself, although if I had one complaint about it, because you're an opossum, you can hang by your prehensile tail. And whenever you do this, the game starts controlling like really slippery. Like, I guess because you're kind of like sliding along vines or something. I don't like how slippery this game gets when you're hanging upside down. It doesn't happen often though, but there are moments that have sort of precise platforming where that slipperiness is definitely more of a hindrance than anything. But now we kind of get to the cool meat and potatoes of this game, and what about it that really strikes me as awesome in terms of gameplay. See, to me this game reminds me a lot of Donkey Kong Country, not in terms of visuals or necessarily even content, but in the fact that every single level kind of gives you completely new mechanics. Every level is a brand new event and a brand new experience for you. Level 1, you're just getting used to the controls, so run around, jump around, hang on stuff, you know, kill some enemies, jetpack around. Level 2, oh, we got an auto-scroller. And then we got a little bit more of a sort of dangerous test for your platforming skills, and then oh yeah, we've got a boss. Level 3, well, we got some auto-scrolling ducking and sliding that feels very reminiscent of Mega Man 8, and indeed the Minecraft carts. Yes, and indeed the Minecraft carts from Donkey Kong Country. After this, we have a boss fight and platforming by way of reflection, which actually reminds me a lot of Astal on the Sega Saturn. Oh god, I gotta talk about that game. That game is frickin' awesome. My point is that every level feels like it introduces new mechanics and has you really try and explore them. The first level, of course, is your standard training affair, but after that, it just kind of goes crazy with it. And the nice thing is it doesn't wear out its welcome. It uses new mechanics and then it discards them for something new in the next level. Sure, it means that these individual level themes aren't reused too much, but at the same time, it means that it keeps every single thing fresh. And the fact that they take very simple mechanics such as run, jump, jetpack, hit with sword, and then sort of pitch shift it through the lens of all these different unique level gimmicks, it means that your very simple concept suddenly becomes a lot more complex. And again, they already kind of did that with the jetpack. Now, it's not a perfect game, mind you. That reflecting pool level, yeah, all that lava, that's an instant kill, and for some reason, my hitbox extended beyond the platform I was standing on for safety, twice. And the first boss, I think, has a bit too robust a moveset. Like, the first boss, it's not bad, but it is literally the first boss, and it has one move that covers 80% of the screen, and if you're not ready for it, you're gonna have no idea how to dodge it. But that said, this is an old school platformer that's not exactly trying to be your friend, it's trying to be a fun, challenging experience, and in that regard it does it well. And it is really challenging at the end of the day when it wants to be. But that said, you're going to have a damn fun, varied experience with some really simple, easy to pick up and play mechanics that works excellently. Seriously, Rocket Knight Adventures, gameplay-wise, is an absolute classic. It's simple, it's easy to pick up and play, damn near infinitely challenging, and it's always showing you something new and different that make you kind of reconsider how to use what you have. And that's awesome. The overall presentation to Rocket Knight Adventures is pretty amazing. First of all, in-game the sprites look great, the environments look fantastic. I quite like the in-between interstitial level chapters where they show like a close-up of your character. They show some like almost concept art type stuff on these little chapter screens. That's basically a reward in and of itself for completing levels. This game also features a metric crap ton of personality-filled animation. Like, there's a scene in the first level where you just walk into a room, there's like a little present there, and then it explodes and has like this really happy, giggly pig jumping up and down, and Sparkster looks all angry about it. When you stop moving, he just stops and stares at you and tries to look super, super cool. They really went to the nines with the animation and personality in this game. Everything about this game just completely feels like it is oozing personality, and I absolutely love it. And the soundtrack is an absolute classic. I love these anthropomorphic characters, and I love the enemies, and you know, it's pretty damn good. There's not really anything about this game that I dislike in terms of presentation. I mean, if I were to criticize, maybe some of the levels could use a little bit more color, maybe, but that would be it. And even so, I mean, I'm just immediately thinking of like the industrial town level, and you know, it's going for a theme, and it works excellently. I think extra color might actually just ruin that. Honestly, this game just looks and sounds awesome. Now, if you want a copy of Rocket Knight Adventures on the Sega Genesis, cheapest one I'm seeing right now is $45, and for this game, I think that's fair. Going back to the start, I think this is one of the most noteworthy platformers on the Sega Genesis. It's a damn bona fide classic, and I think anyone who's looking to collect for the system needs this in their library. This is an absolute must-have. This game also happened to feature 3 sequels, one on the Sega Genesis, one on the Super Nintendo that had the same name and artwork, but were completely different games because it was the 90s, that's how things worked, and that's part of why I love the 90s so much. Haven't played either of them. I've never even seen copies of either version of that game, honestly. But there was a 4th game put on the Xbox 360 as a downloadable title known only as Rocket Knight. And I've played a little bit of that. That game is okay, but I don't think any of them are coming anywhere near close to how cool and awesome the original Rocket Knight Adventures is. As an absolute Genesis classic on the Sega Genesis, I think this game is an absolute must-own, and I think it's a testament to how great Konami used to be, you know, when they cared and they put their heart and soul into things, because this game is amazing. Even though there are sequels to this game, I don't think there ever really was another Rocket Knight Adventures. I mean, yeah, there are sequels, like I said, but this feels like a completely unique thing. And you could make sequels till the cows come home, but I don't think anyone would truly capture how special this game was. Rocket Knight Adventures is a game I played once when I was a kid, is a game I bought almost a decade ago now just to make this video. And I've been sitting on this, trying to get this to work for so long, and even now, I'm still smiling and thinking it's worth it. This game is damn good.